welcome. This is the lecture on the American War for Independence, the war between the colonies and Britain, which sort of officially began when the Americans signed the Declaration of Independence. So for this war, we're not going to look too much at the military aspect of it, a little bit, but not much. But let's start off with looking at the strengths and weaknesses of each side, and we'll start with Britain. And their first strength is their overwhelming disparity in population, a 3-to-1 ratio, 7.5 million to 2.5 million. And you might be thinking, oh, that's pretty low populations, but this is before the real population of boom that really didn't begin until the Industrial Revolution in the 19th century. And they have overwhelming financial and naval power. Britain has understood the power of the debt, that they can borrow and borrow and borrow from bankers and other lenders, and who trust that they will be paid back because Britain is not going away. The government is stable. They will pay you back. And so they can borrow as much as they want to help pay for the war. Now, ironically, that strength is sort of what got them into the whole mess in the first place, leading to the debt from the French and Indian War. But it's a tool that they have. And, of course, their navy. They have a professional army and navy. They are veterans. They are well trained. They know what they're doing as soldiers, okay, as opposed to the Americans who really have no experience in fighting and as soldiery in this area. They can draw on others as well. They hire 30,000 Hessians, Germans from the Hesse region, and they are fighting for money. Okay, that's what they're there for. They're mercenaries. And they've got within the colonies themselves, those loyalists is about a quarter to a third of the population is on their side. How loyal, that might vary, and how much they're willing to contribute is also going to vary. And natives, some will join up. Most sort of try to stay neutral, but some of the native groups do fight, especially on the frontier, and cause problems. All right, so let's look at some of the weaknesses. Okay, They've got distractions. In Ireland, there are Irish rebellions that's diverting some of the soldiers to that region. France is very eager to get in, but they're not just going to quickly join in. They want to see what the Americans are willing to offer, and but they are going to join, and we'll get to that. Okay, and they don't have very good leadership. Prime Minister and a king and generals, they're lacking in this respect. And something that's very important, and we'll touch on the next screen, is supplies, logistics, and morale. Okay, for the colonies, leadership in the areas where they really need it. Washington in the military, he learns early on that by not losing, he's winning. And so he has losses early on, but he understands, you can retreat and have success. You don't need to stand your ground and have all your soldiers be killed by this very good professional British army. You can move around, and you can suck them into the land, and you don't have to engage. So going in more like a guerrilla warfare kind of way. And Benjamin Franklin, in the area of diplomacy, he's over in France, he's in Paris, and he's negotiating with the French, and he's successful in obtaining an alliance, which brings us to our next one. They get the French support, and that French Navy and some other key areas that France can help, like economic areas as well. The colonies are fighting a defensive fight. They don't need to win, they just need to not lose. And they need to make the British sort of realize that you cannot conquer us, because Britain has to conquer and control, and that's a lot more difficult there. And supplies, logistics, morale. All right, on the negative side, they're poorly organized, disunited, like Congress, like we can call it maybe like a national government. They're not working as one. Like all the different colonies are sort of acting petulant, almost childish in a way of not really contributing things that they need to contribute to the fight. And they have a lot of economic problems, especially they just don't have money. They don't have hard money. They can print it, which they do, like paper money, but it's not all that trusted, and they print too much of it, and so there's a rampant inflation going on within the colonies. All right, supplies, logistics, morale. These are the things I like to talk about when I talk about war, of why the strong doesn't always win in war. The war that I really liken this war, the War for American Independence, is to another war for independence, the Vietnam War, where it's the same situation. It's the Vietnamese fighting for their independence against the superpower of the day, which is the United States. And the United States overwhelmingly stronger, but not able to achieve a victory because they don't have the morale, the supplies, the logistics, or a strategy that's obtainable, can be done. Like the Americans had a strategy in Vietnam, but it was not a very obtainable, clear one, and so it didn't work. Now, for morale, like, why are you fighting? Are you willing to die? Are you willing to send your son off to die? Americans, yes. British, no. And so for the soldiers and civilians, there's not a lot of heart in it for the British for this one. Even in Britain itself, like the government, many in government, the opposition, those not in power but in the government, were cheering for the Americans because they saw that, if America loses, that's like a victory for them. And so, like, you're not going to win a war if you can't bring the whole country behind it. And then logistics and supplies. The geography, like, it's big. Okay, you might have weapons and guns for your soldiers. Can you get it to them? You might have a very important message that you need to get to somebody out in the field. Can you get it to them? There's no roads, right? There are no roads. There's no long-distance communication. There's not even mail. So this is a very big advantage for the Americans, that they are able to get supplies and logistics, and they're able to get supplies to where people need them, or they're just able to get it on their own. And then goals. Let's look at the map, okay, and what Britain wanted to do. Britain had a goal, which was to divide and conquer, where here's Massachusetts, New England up here, here's New York, okay, and then the South is just off the map here, that they're going to divide New England off from the rest. So they're going to split them off, knowing that it's up in New England that you got the strongest patriotic support. So they're going to have one group coming down from the north and down the middle, with another group that's going to come up from Philadelphia, and then they'll meet and they'll pinch off. They'll pinch off New England. Well, one comes down, but the other doesn't come up because of the communication. They were not able to for various reasons. And the Americans are able to secure then a very decisive victory at Saratoga, and that's our turning point. And what the turning point is after this victory, France understands, hey, they know what they're doing, the Americans, and we want to get in on this. We want to get in on this and take a stab at the British. And so it's after this battle that the French join. And fighting continues for a little bit, and it moves into the south. Saw this mess down here, which is the Americans just sort of constantly being on the move and getting the British to get deeper and deeper into the countryside and away from their supply lines, away from their communication lines, and not engaging, just sort of not fighting. And in this way, like a guerrilla war of sort of like ambush, hit and run, or just a strategic retreat, they're able to wear out the British. And then they secure a very decisive victory at Yorktown. It's the last battle where the main large British army is trapped on the land by George Washington and trapped on the sea by the French. And it's over, and the British got to sit down and negotiate with the Americans, who have now sort of earned and fought for their independence. And we get a change to the map. This map's going to change quite frequently. And for the Americans, they're able to secure a claim to all the way to the Mississippi. Here's the Mississippi down there. Now, of course, that's just a claim. All the Americans are still over here, but now they have the right by their government to move down into the Ohio. But there's, of course, still natives who are living on the land. There'll be disputes with Spain down here over who will have control over there, but that will be settled for a later time. So the Americans, they're off and running, and they've got their country, and quite decisively are there. All right, thank you very much for listening.